Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Profit Minds podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch, creator of the Profit Minds Growth System, a unique blend of profit growth, productivity acceleration, and building robust business process for scale. In every episode, I interview entrepreneurs and small business owners from around the world with a unique story to tell. You can find the show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and more. Well, hello. Badass Brotherhood. And today we're going to talk about how to apply the learnings from professional hockey to building a world-class business. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Dr. Stephen. It's great to be here. I appreciate the time.
Thanks. And, I start every one of these with the same question. How did you get here? And for you, that's got to be a really interesting story to go from a pro hockey coach to an entrepreneur with eight figures of business. So tell us your story.
Well, growing up in Canada, I was like every other child. I wanted to play professional hockey. I wanted to be the next Wayne Gretzky. I got to the age of 18 and I figured out, you know what? I'm not the next Wayne Gretzky. I'm not the next Bobby Orr. I'm not the next Sidney Crosby. So I said to myself, how would I be able to make hockey or sports part of my game? That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be part of sports. So I decided to go to university and take phys ed so that my plan B would be I could be a high school gym teacher and I'd be around sports. Secondly, I started coaching minor hockey, kids that were age 10 to 12. And for the very first time in my life, I realized even though I'm not going to play the sport professionally for money, I'm not going to be a scholarship student. I was like, wow, this is even more than my passion. This is my obsession. And I remember coming home and talking to my mom and dad at the time. I was like 18 and I said, I know exactly what I want to do with my life. And my mom and dad almost fell off the chair because at 18 years old, they had no idea what I was going to end up doing. So from that point forward, I immersed myself into coaching the sport of hockey. I love coaching the kids. I started reading all kinds of books, autobiographies, biographies on football coaches, baseball managers, you name it. And then I fell into the world of Tony Robbins' leadership. Anything, Doc, I could get my hands on that was about peak performance or productivity or mental toughness. And after that, it was interesting. I was in the when I graduated from college, I coached hockey all the way through college as a job. My friends were working at Subway or Arby's or at the local pub. I was coaching junior hockey full time. And when I graduated after 4 years of university, I had my first minor pro job waiting for me at the age of 25, which made me the youngest coach in minor pro. I was an assistant coach. That was the job that was offered to me. Fast forward 3 years, and my life completely changed. I was fired after 3 years of coaching, and I mean, my world was rocked. I had never been fired from anything before in my life. So I returned home to my parents' place to lick my wounds for a few weeks and then get back in the coaching game. And, my dad always says, if you're going to be in the coaching game, you're hired to be fired. So he had no sympathy whatsoever. So I'm sitting at the kitchen table with my mom and dad one night, and my dad's been an entrepreneur for 45 years running the insurance company. And he says, son, we have a little bit of a chat. And I said, sure. And he said, before you start applying for other coaching positions, can I ask you a few questions? And I said, of course. And he said, you've been coaching for the last 10 years. He said, how many cities have you lived in? I said, I've lived in 7 cities in the last 10 years. He said, how many homes and apartments have you had? I said, I've moved 7 times into 7 different homes, 7 different apartments. He goes, how many people have you worked for, owners of teams? I said, 5 in 5 years. He said, in other words, every 2 years you're working for a different person. And he said, how many times have you been fired because the team wasn't doing well financially? I said, 1. He said, do you see yourself getting married in the next decade? I was single at the time. I was just on my own. I said, yes, I'd like to get married in the next 5 to 10 years. He says, do you see yourself having children and raising a family? I said, of course, that's one of my priorities and values and principles. He said, help me understand, how the hell can you do any of that without sacrificing your marriage, your health, your children? He said, your kids are going to go to 10 schools in 10 years. Your wife's going to pack and unpack homes, as you get fired and hired and you go through it. So he said, this is what I'm offering you. He said, before you go back to hockey, you can always go back to hockey. He said, would you be willing to give me 1 year, 12 months? He said, you come in and work with me at the insurance agency. We had a small town insurance agency. My dad always called it the greatest lifestyle business in the world. He said, you come in and you commit for 1 year. I will teach you the business from the front door to the back door. Everything from reception, answering phones, processing paper, cleaning the bathrooms. And after 1 year, when you've done every job in the building, walk into my office. And if you say, Dad, this is not for me, you go back to hockey and you live your life. But if it is for you and you find a passion or an obsession or a light bulb goes off, he says, I will make an agreement, a purchase agreement for you to buy the company. And my dad really wanted one of the children to take over the company. He'd put 45 years of his entrepreneurial life into it. I did exactly that, Doc. I went in there for 1 year. I didn't really think it was going to work out. I did everything from the front door to the back door. I'd learned the position, I'd fire myself. I'd learned the position, I'd fire myself. And when the 12 months was up, I walked into my dad's office. I said, I don't like this business. I love this business. And I said, business is the same as sports. I love coaching. I love marketing. I love selling. I love all of it, plus the lifestyle that'll come with this. So we signed an agreement then over 10 years for me to buy the building and the business. I worked shoulder to shoulder with my dad till he was 85, 17 glorious years in the insurance business. It took us 7 years to become the number one agent in the entire country. We're the number one producing agent for 7 consecutive years. We were on television, we were on radio, we were on morning shows, we were on social media. And I literally took what I learned in coaching, owning my own team, and I applied it to the insurance business. The 17 greatest years of my life working with my dad.
That's a great story, Michael. I recently hired my daughter to work for me, and I can tell you, as a father, there is no joy like working with one of your kids. So I can appreciate where your father was coming from, and so. But I got a question. I mean, hockey and insurance, they're not alike. So what were the key things about being a coach of a hockey team that translated into insurance?
Well, one of the things, Doc, is I owned my own junior team. I was the actual owner of a junior team before I was coaching pro. And that's where I cut my teeth as a promoter and a marketer. And because you got to fill the stadium, you got to fill the arena every 3 to 4 nights. And if you don't do it, you're not going to pay the bills. So I brought that attitude and that mindset from sports marketing and sports promotion. And I brought that to the stale, dull, and corporate world of insurance. And it was easier to stand out than I thought, because I was going up against these mammoth insurance companies, the Geicos, the Progressives, multi-billion-dollar companies. So I did the exact opposite. And I said, okay, I'm going to be the face of this company. I'm going to be the spokesperson of this company. When there's a radio ad or a television ad, or we're raising funds for the food bank, I'm going to be the person. And I want all my clients to say, I'm insured with Michael McLean. I don't want them to say, I'm insured with a corporation. So we went all in on personality marketing, but I started building that over time, like I would build a football team or a hockey team. I took the office, Doc, and I turned it into a locker room. And what I mean by locker room is, at behind the scenes, I made sure everybody had windows, everybody had doors, everybody had nameplates. I had all the motivational signs and the grade boards and all of this stuff that you would see in a typical sports locker room. And then I went out and hired my team, because Red Berenson, the great hockey coach at Michigan, he had a great saying. He said, whoever has the best players getting off the bus usually wins. And that's in sport or business. Whoever has the best players getting off the bus usually wins. So I was determined to build this company up. We only had 3 employees, and they were toxic and radioactive. And my dad, admittedly, not a great manager. So I went to work building that team from 3 people, brand new. I took a broom to the place, and eventually we had 23 people and a payroll over $1 million. But I put my recruiting hat on, and I went after people that had never been in the insurance business, and I trained them our way. And it was no different than me recruiting a hockey player, where I would go and meet with the person, I would sell them on the program. And then when I had my team in place, we went all in on making the phones ring. And, back in the day, we were doing flyers, postcards, we were doing videos, TV ads, radio ads. But I started with a tiny little budget, and every month I'd invest a little bit more. And the other thing that I learned from my dad is, he said, Michael, this is a 10-year agreement. This is big money. You need to live small. In other words, I was the guy making $30,000. I had all my employees making more money than me, because I had to pay my dad $30,000 a month, which was more than I ever thought of in my life. But he said, if you live simple and you keep your head about you, you'll be able to pay this thing off. And then after a decade, you can live the lifestyle of your dreams. And I lived so simple, and I paid myself that tiny amount, that I was able to pay off the loan in 7.5 years. And now my wife, Krista, and my daughter, Emery, and I, we live half the year in Naples, Florida. The other half, we live in Canada. And literally, we have an incredible lifestyle. But I paid the price when I was young. I paid the price when I was unmarried. And I paid the price when I was single. And I lived simple. And that was the big thing. I had that that entrepreneurial mindset, and I just kept focusing on sales, marketing, and team building.
Yeah, I think your insight into the importance of the team is really crucial. I think most small business owners, I'll say they sacrifice the quality for having a warm body in a spot sometimes. That it's detrimental not only to the business, but also to the morale of the people that are there. Right.
Well, this was a really big thing for me, because when I worked, Doc, that first year, these people expose themselves as who they are, the good and the bad and the ugly, right? And they didn't think that I was going to stick around. They thought I would return to coaching. So, I mean, I got to evaluate all of our employees, the 4 of them, when I was there. And that on day 1 is when I took a broom to the place. I was preparing it at like month 10 and 11 and 12. And I would put these ads in the local newspaper. I would put them on Facebook, and I would drive people to a simple video page where they could apply. They'd have to write me a letter about why they want to work there. I didn't hire anybody that had insurance experience. I didn't want any bad habits, but I just saw when I was working there the first 12 months, how cancerous the morale was. And you're right. Like, I wanted to fill that place with high achievers. And like Coach Nick Saban says, he says, ordinary and mediocre people, they want to be left alone. The 4 people that I worked, they just wanted to be left alone. They didn't care about the business. They just wanted to walk out the door at 5 o'clock. The thing about people that are average, a little better than average, they want to be coached. But the highest level, the high performance people, employees, they want to be told the truth. So that's the type of person I recruited. And I would have never been able to get to number 1, nor be able to escape the business. Because remember, I was trapped in the business the first few years. I was, trapped in a Frankenstein business. until I was able to get the people and the systems in place. Then I was able to escape and really go all in on marketing.
Yeah. So what did you look for in those? You said so high achievers, but how do you interview for something like that?
Well, my marketing and advertising eliminates 99% of people out of 100. So I have a tiny impact ad online and offline. And basically it's the most candid ad somebody could ever read. And basically it said, this is exactly what we want. Boom, boom, boom. This is what we will not tolerate. Boom, boom, boom. And then, Doc, I learned this in pro. I only want to be around coachable people. I can't help somebody who's not coachable. I don't care about talent. I don't care about experience. I want to know, can I coach you up? So they would have to write a letter about what, who was the greatest influence in their life. They'd have to FedEx the package to a certain address. I didn't accept anything less than them following these rules. And it was so funny. 85% of people would mess up the instructions of the ad. So they would mail it to the wrong place. They wouldn't include 6 references. They wouldn't mail the letter. So I would then only have these 5 or 6 resumes. But man, oh man, were these people killers. Like, these were people that wrote me 10-page letters. They wanted an opportunity. And then after that, the interview process is very seamless because you're only dealing with a handful of people. And they're all coachable. And as I tell my wife, Krista, I said, I used to have the hardest time picking one person because I would interview 4 or 5 people for a position as a receptionist. And I would be, Krista, I want all these people. And I got to the point where I just kept building that resume file. And then when I had more money, I would hire that, next person. And then that's exactly how I did it. But telling exactly what we wanted and what we did not want.
That's really important. I think, I've worked with some of my clients to help them put out ads for people and making sure that it's clear what's the culture like of this company that I'm coming to, and it's a marketing job. You said that yourself, right? You're really marketing to people who are looking for a position. So I think that's really insightful.
The thing is, especially that was 10 years ago. Can you imagine today? Like, a lot of people can't read and can't follow direction. We were in the insurance business. You can't make mistakes. Like, I wasn't hiring, like at my barber shop, or it wasn't like I was hiring for my old window washing company. We're insuring people's lives. We're insuring their homes. We're insuring their vehicles. Like, I needed razor sharp people. And I made them jump through the hoops that eliminated 85% of them. And then the other qualifications. And the other thing I learned, Doc, was these were the home runs for me in terms of background. And I went in, I was an open book. In our area, the best people that I hired in my 22 years had a small business family background. And what I mean by that is mom and dad ran a small business. These were men and women who had grown up in a small business. Mom and dad maybe had a restaurant or a store. So that was number 1. Number 2 is anybody from the hospitality industry. These are people that are waitresses, waiters, bartenders. They're used to earning commission. They're used to working hard. They're used to dealing with difficult people. And then the third one was anybody with an agricultural background. We live in a large farming community where people, they grew up on a dairy farm. They're used to getting up at 4 a.m. before school. And I didn't know this in the beginning, but as I went hiring through the years, as soon as I would see anybody with that family business background, that farming business background, or just, that hospitality industry, those were some of my very best people because of their mindset, their attitude, and their coachability.
That's really good. I want to go back to the whole idea of working for your dad. What was that like?
Well, it doesn't work out most of the time. Like, I've worked with thousands of entrepreneurs, a lot of fathers and sons, fathers and daughters, especially the father and son doesn't seem to work out. In my case, I was blessed because it did, but I give all the credit to my dad because, you know, he was running a small agency. It was 3.4 million. That's a mid-sized to small agency. He had been doing it successfully for 45 years. Most fathers would say, you know, let's come in, let's not, you know, shake things up. Let's get you by in this place. And when I retire, you can do your own thing. My dad never, ever said that. Ever, ever, ever. He said, the second you start paying for this, which was day number 1 after the first year, he said, this is your show. And he said, he goes, promise me you'll run it like a team. He goes, promise me you'll focus on marketing and sales, which is my thing. That's my obsession. And he said, don't adjust to the insurance business. Make the insurance business adjust to you. He said, you have those special talents that'll differentiate you from all these large companies. And it was so interesting, Steve, because, you know, I would go into my dad and I'd say, listen, we're going to test this newspaper ad, or we're going to test this radio ad, or we're going to test this TV ad. And most fathers would have a closed mind and they'd say, well, we don't do things like that around here. Or who do you think you are? Or why do you want to do that? And they would encourage their son or daughter to play small. My dad did the opposite. He said, you play offense, this is your game. And I even remember before I was the owner of the business, I would ask my dad what he would think about me testing this. He'd say, let's test it. If it's a winner, we'll do more of it. And if it's a loser, we'll stop. And my dad sat there and watched me replace all of the staff. He watched me tear down walls and windows and all this stuff. And all he said was, play offense.
Yeah, that's interesting. It reminds me of you know, the hockey analogy that the Wayne Gretzky quote. It says, you know, skate to where the puck is going to be.
Right.
Right. And that idea of, you know, let's play the marketing game, play offense, play so we can score, play so we can, right, so that we move the puck forward. And yeah, not every play works, but you learn from that.
And my dad had this vision. He said, you know, you're not going to come in here and sit in this chair, this leather chair, for the next 25 years and live a good lifestyle on my life's work. I and your mother expect you to take this to an all new level. And if you're not prepared to do that, go back to hockey, because you need to be a man on a mission. If you don't have a mission, you're not alive. So that was very clear. And I mean, when we became number 1 in the entire country, it took us 7 years to get there. I said to my dad one day, I said, did you ever see this happening, Pop? Did you ever see us, you know, getting to this level where we're one of the big dogs? And he said, actually, I did. And that's all you need right there. And my dad used to comment all the time, because we would have a father-son lunch every Monday. We'd go across the street to the pub and we'd have a sandwich and a beer. Best times of my life every Monday, just sitting down with my dad, you know, talking about family, talking about politics, sports, life. I never got to do that because I was always away coaching hockey. I wasn't close with my dad during the coaching years because I was never home. And when I got the opportunity to work with my dad for 17 years, one of the things we always did is we had those Monday lunches where we'd break down everything. But he just kept always telling me, he's like, you know, this is your opportunity. This is your show. And he said to me, I was age 35 to 45. And he says, when do you want to retire? And I said, at 45. He said, well, then you go as hard as you can for 10 years. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. And I actually ended up selling the business at age 47 and retiring the first time. So I missed it by 2 years. But just having him there, he used to notice, we go into a restaurant or a business and he'd say, you know why this business isn't working with the second or third generation? And I'd be like, no. He'd say, because the father or the mother didn't really want it to work, that second generation. And he never had any problem like that. He cheered on the winning when a lot of parents are like, stay small.
Oh, that's a great story, Michael. So I understand you have a book. You want to talk to us about your book a little bit, and you're offering that to our listeners?
I have a free book that I wrote this year. It's free to your listeners. It's called The 5 Ways to Un-F Your Life and Business. And actually, Doc, I sat down one day here last year at the pool, and it's incredible because, I've written different books and they've taken me months and sometimes years. And I wrote this 22-page book literally in 2 hours. It just came pouring out of me. And I guess it's from all the years of coaching and all the years of being a small business owner, but it's 22 pages. And I go through the 5 things that I went through and overcame when I was a small business owner. And I sat there and I asked myself when I was sitting by the pool, what are the 5 things, I wish I knew when I first got into business, or when I first got into entrepreneurship, or when I first became a father or husband? And I just wrote those down. It ended up 22 pages, but the book is free to your listeners at brassballsvideos.com. The reason I call the domain brassballsvideos.com is I shoot a video every morning at 6 a.m. when I'm out on my walk. So I email a video to anybody that's on my list for free. So not only will your listeners can download and print off a copy of the book for free, but if they want, they can stay on the email list, and every morning they get a video from me on my morning walk. And I talk every day. It's different. I talk about marketing, money, marriage, fitness, health, systems, whatever it is. So that's my offering, and it's free to anybody that's listening. brassballsvideos.com.
Great. And if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach out?
Same way, through that website. You'll get the emails, and a person can reply to those emails, and I read every email personally. So like most coaches, I have several books. I have one elite mastermind and some other offerings, but the place to start is at brassballsvideos.com. And you can read that book in 35 minutes. I wish I had that book 20 years ago. And then a lot of people appreciate the video every day of whatever's on my mind, walking and talking. So that's the place to start.
Great. Thanks. And that concludes our show. Thanks so much to my guest, Michael McLean, the founder and CEO of Badass Brotherhood. I hope you learned something about how to take professional hockey lessons and turn them into a world-class business. I know I did. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Profit Minds podcast. This is your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch. Please visit www.profitminds.net for other episodes or to contact me. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. Thanks for listening. Have a grateful day.